For years, it was the politics of Westminster which seemed to tremble, week after week. But of late, it is Holyrood which has convulsed. And today, things became that little bit more volatile, that little bit more uncertain via the latest jolt. Alex Salmond returning to the political fray with a new party to contest the upcoming Holyrood elections, Alba.
Alba will contest the upcoming Scottish elections as a list-only party under my leadership, seeking to build a supermajority for independence in the Scottish Parliament.
Many assumed his political career was over, but others had anticipated a return as soon as the saga over his alleged sexual impropriety had ended.
I think he was kind of waiting, biding his time until all of that was done and dusted so that he could rise phoenix-like again from the ashes and try and carve out another political career, because I think he misses it, basically. I think he's a politician, you know, through and through, and he wants to be involved. And I also think there's part of him, you know, he has a large ego, and there's a part of him that thinks if there is going to be another second independence referendum, he wants to be involved in that.
Indeed, Salmond is claiming that this will do no harm to the SNP at all. He can do so because of the Scottish electoral system, where there are essentially two votes for the constituencies and the regional list. He's only standing candidates in the regional list seats, which the SNP can't do well in because they dominate in the constituencies. He therefore claims he can bolster Holyrood with more pro-independence MSPs, not at the SNP's expense, but of the unionist parties who get elected on the list. But there are at least two major problems with that theory.
When we've seen people try to manipulate systems like this before, Italy is a very good example of where we've seen this happen in the past. It usually involves a nod and a wink and parties working together. So the fact that the SNP is, you know, quite aggressively coming out and saying to their voters not to support Alex Salmond's party on the list is going to make things more difficult for him, as is the fact that he is not a popular figure in Scotland anymore. Just 14% of the Scottish population have a favourable view of him.
But it isn't solely about the seats on the map. It is also about what effect Salmond's presence in the race might have on its tenor. This has been a traumatic period both for Nicola Sturgeon and for the Scottish National Party. The sight of their former and current leader embroiled in open warfare has damaged the First Minister and affected her poll ratings and that of her parties, although it must be said that both do remain robust. But the danger for them surely is that Alex Salmond's continued presence on the campaign trail only serves to remind voters of this ugly period, and her exoneration by the Hamilton inquiry isn't the full stop to the affair that so many in the SNP hoped it would be. But it's the next chapter of the story which must surely now preoccupy Nicola Sturgeon. When she next walks these corridors, likely as First Minister, the hardest test of all will begin, where she must try and use her position, majority or not, to secure a referendum Westminster will not want to give. The last thing she will want is Alex Salmond here as she does it, a fact of which he must surely be only too aware.
Lewis Goodall there. Now, I spoke to the former First Minister Alex Salmond earlier this evening and started by asking him what was the motivation behind his decision to set up a new political party.
Oh, our motivation is to guarantee an independent supermajority in the Scots Parliament. We fully expect the Scottish National Party to sweep the constituency section. But one of the byproducts of the SNP doing that is they get next to no seats or representation in the regional list. In fact, there could be 1 million wasted SNP independence votes. So the Alba Party, or Alba, to give it its Gaelic pronunciation, will be going for the list vote, the regional list vote. We'll get more MSPs and we'll build that independent supermajority in the Scots Parliament, which I think will be crucial in rebalancing the power between Westminster on the one hand and the Scottish Government on the other.
What's your primary role in this new Holyrood majority that you seek? Do you expect to be part of any government? Would you allow Nicola Sturgeon to continue as First Minister if you had to support the SNP?
Well, it's the people who will determine who will be First Minister, and it looks, every indication is that Nicola Sturgeon will be returned as First Minister. But Alba's role will be not to go into government, but to contribute to that independence supermajority. We're also going to contribute ideas about recovery from the pandemic, which the economic tsunami which is about to hit us. We're badly needing ideas for recovery. and also burnishing and burnishing the independence platform, because the world has moved on since 2014. And we've got to make sure that the independence platform confronts the new political realities.
You're asking for the trust of all Scottish voters, but Scottish women as well. Are you a reformed man when it comes to relations with women?
Well, I think you've seen already in announcing two strong women candidates today from Alba out of our first four. There's going to be a commitment to women's representation. One of the big issues in this election is going to be safe single-sex spaces for women in Scotland.
Do you think you have anything further to apologise for in regards to your behaviour as regards women?
Well, you know, we've had 2 court cases, 2 judges, 1 jury and 3 inquiries. And most fair-minded people in Scotland, incidentally, respect the result of a jury who hears all the evidence. Now, the result was I was acquitted of all charges, and fair-minded people would say, look, it's now time to move on. I'm moving on to talk about the issues that I've always wanted to talk about, been unable to do for the last couple of years, and that is independence for Scotland and how to secure it for our country. And that's a noble cause, a noble aim, and I'm looking forward to a campaign. And I pledge you this, the Alba Party, at least, will fight this campaign totally positive, and no Alba candidate will go on the negative in this campaign, because we're talking about the most important issue of all, is how to gain Scottish independence in the interests of the Scottish people.
But the SNP and all the other parties are united in raising serious questions about whether somebody who has admitted the mistakes that you have admitted should be seeking high office. What do you say to that? And you have admitted some mistakes in terms of your personal conduct.
Well, in terms of my personal conduct, what I said in the court case was that the charges against me were part fabrication and part exaggeration. That was the defence that
there's a core of something there that you've acknowledged.
The jury was composed of ordinary men and women, predominantly women actually, of Scotland. They came to a conclusion. So people have complaints with that. They should take it up with jury. But most fair-minded people in Scotland would accept a jury verdict. That's what fair-minded people do. Now, my political opponents, they can say what they like, but obviously they're frightened, because they're frightened of losing votes and seats to the new Alba Party. But what I can say about our campaign, it's going to be entirely positive. It's not going to be personal. It's going to be on the issues. That is the tenor of the campaign we're going to fight. We'll see what our political opponents do. But I know it's the sort of campaign that people in Scotland are waiting to hear.
Do you reject James Hamilton's finding that the ministerial code was not broken as regards Nicola Sturgeon?
No, I made it clear this week that whatever I disagree with, I now have to accept, because you see, when you have court cases, when you have judges, when you have juries, and when you have free investigations, you have to accept the results. If you take part, you have to accept the results. It doesn't matter if you agree with them or not. You accept the results and move on. And the 2 outstanding parts, that is the legal action, civil action against the Scottish Government and the Permanent Secretary, and also the report to the police on the leak to the Daily Record, which caused so much distress for everyone involved in that issue. They were things which came out of the recommendations, unanimous recommendations of the parliamentary inquiry. But on all matters, I think it's best now, 2 court cases, 2 judges, 1 jury, 3 investigations. Let's move on and debate the future of Scotland. So
part of your argument and part of your pitch will be that, say, for example, on the currency matter, that Scotland should, that's something that you came a cropper in 2014 on this argument. Have you developed your thinking on that? Do you disagree with the SNP position on Scottish pound, for example?
Well, you say came a cropper. I mean, during the independence argument in 2014, the support for independence moved from around 30% to 45%. So we can argue who won or lost the campaign, but clearly independence support increased by 15%, which is a lot. But what I would say is this, that the world has moved on since 2014. And the world in particular is a world in which it's important to have as small a debt as possible, and also to take advantage of the extremely low or even negative interest rates. Now, that would tend to make the case for moving to a Scottish currency just as quickly as you can, because you don't want to have debt denominated in another currency. And not just on currency, but also on borders, also in Europe. You know, we are now outside the European Union. That's a different perspective from 2014. And one of the contributions I think Alba will make is to construct the new independence platform, to make our contribution to it, which takes account of these new political realities.
So you're talking about a massive deficit for independent Scotland. You're also talking about a land border between England and Scotland, your biggest market.
Well, let's see how we can develop that argument. Let's take the position of Northern Ireland. I think you'll find that when the arguments settle as regards and we move out of Brexit and the people in Northern Ireland see the advantages of access to two markets, and then the preeminent argument of securing your access to economic marketplaces is going to be an obvious, dominating and common sense proposition. So just as the fishermen of Scotland have found out the importance of access to that single marketplace, if we can guarantee access to marketplaces, that is the bedrock in which to build your trade.
And if you get your majority and the Westminster government says no to a referendum, what's your plan then? There's nothing you can do.
Well, our argument is that the independence negotiations, which we believe should start when there is an independence majority in the Parliament, now these negotiations might encompass referendums or other democratic tests. There might be legal action, there might be international pressure, there could be international legal action, there'll certainly be peaceful demonstrations of the people of Scotland. That is all part of the political pressure that you build up to take forward the independence case. Boris Johnson would like to frame this as the British government, as the London government, taking on the SNP, a single political party. What he won't want, what his worst nightmare will be, is Boris Johnson as the Tory Prime Minister taking on the Scottish Parliament, representing the Scottish people. That's why the Parliament mobilising the people to advance the cause of independence is so vital. That's why it's such a big opportunity to take forward the noblest cause of all, the pursuit of independence for our country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salmond. Much appreciated.
Thanks very much.
Alex Salmond there, leader of the new Alba Party. Well, joining me now is the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, Douglas Ross, MP. Thank you for joining us. You're happy about this split in the independence movement?
No, I'm not happy to see Alex Salmond trying to get back into Scottish politics. Someone who himself accepted his behaviour against women was appalling. Women who worked for him and with him when he was First Minister of Scotland. But what we have seen is yet again the nationalists pushing forward their agenda for another independence referendum over and above our recovery or rebuilding after COVID. And it means that people in Scotland who don't want that, who don't want to go through the divisive arguments that we had in the past, have to unite around the strongest party to stop the nationalists, and that's the Scottish Conservatives. We're the only party that's willing to stand up to the SNP or any nationalists and get our focus back on recovery and rebuilding.
But he was one of your big strategies. You spent months bigging up his claims when you could use them against the First Minister, and now he's coming for your list seats.
I absolutely did not. I never supported Alex Salmond in any way. I disagree with him vehemently on policies, but his actions and the treatment of women who worked with him is unacceptable, and that's why I think he's not.
But you were happy to take his word when it could be used against Nicola Sturgeon?
No, I was happy to take the word of numerous witnesses at the committee and the First Minister's own evidence to that inquiry. But what we're seeing here is the nationalists trying to game plan the Scottish election. So we, as unionists who want to stop that, who want to get our focus back here in Scotland on the issues that really matter, because we've been let down over the last 14 years by the SNP, there is now a real threat in this election that the nationalists will push forward their agenda for separation. So we've got to have a strong party and an opposition that will stop them, and that's the Scottish Conservatives. We can see Labour support the SNP in votes in Parliament. They're weak against the SNP, so you need a party that's going to unite against the SNP and against all nationalists, and that's the Scottish Conservatives.
So you've given up on the chance of an alliance of any sort, informal, a unionist alliance?
No, I'm asking. I've said to other parties, work with us to defeat the SNP. We can get them out of office after 14 years of failure, but we've got to prioritise that. We've got to put the squabbling between the unionist parties behind us. That's why I'm saying we've got to get back to that better together message that defeated them in 2014. incredible from Alex Salmond to say today in your interview, who won the referendum in 2014. It was the no vote, those who voted to remain part of the United Kingdom.
OK, but he is going to go, Douglas Ross, he is going to go to the Scottish fishermen who, partly because of a Brexit deal that you voted for, that was sold as a great benefit to fishermen, who have seen, after Brexit, a fall in exports to the EU, in some cases of up to 80%, and he's going to say that you've betrayed them, those hard-working Scottish fishermen. What are you going to say? You're going to apologise?
Well, I'm meeting with fishermen from the northeast of Scotland tomorrow in a virtual meeting.
Well, you're meeting with them. You voted for a policy that has led to a collapse in their exports. Can you acknowledge that?
Well, I've said we need the compensation scheme, which is why I welcome the UK government.
They don't want compensation. They want to sell their fish to their markets, Mr. Ross.
But that's why I welcome the £23 million compensation scheme, and we've got to work with the fishermen to solve the issues with bureaucracy and added paperwork, and that's what the UK government are doing.
OK, well, hang on. Are they doing that? Would you press Lord Frost and Boris Johnson for a veterinary agreement that would lower the checks and the red tape that your fishermen exporters face, that requires a bit of alignment? That is a practical argument. People are talking about it. Would you push your own party to back a veterinary agreement that would help those fishermen?
I have already had discussions with the Cabinet Office, with the Prime Minister, with members throughout the government to ensure that we get rid of the red tape that is blocking the exports to the EU, that is delaying our exports, and we need to get a solution for our fishermen. I fully accept that. But what Alex Salmond is offering is more division. It's not trying to solve the problem for the fishermen or anyone in Scotland. He said it 2 or 3 times in your interview. His #1 priority and all nationalists' #1 priority is more division, another referendum, not focusing on our recovery. We can do far better than that in Scotland, but only if we stop them. And we've shown over the last 5 years that only people that can stop the SNP, stop the Nationalists, is the Scottish Conservatives, because we're not afraid of them. We're going to stand up against them and make sure the focus is on our recovery and rebuilding.
We must end that there. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Douglas Ross. Thank you.